I know it's there because I see the reactions, I see the photographs, I see the critics. And
Audrey Hepburn's life shimmered with glamour, grace, and timeless beauty. But beneath the surface lay a deeply personal story of longing and loss few ever saw. What if the man she never truly moved on from wasn't a husband or lover, but someone far closer, whose absence haunted her for decades? This unexpected truth redefines the narrative of her life and love, exposing a quiet heartbreak that shaped everything from her relationships to her ultimate search for peace. Today, we uncover the one figure Audrey named before her death as the love she never quite let go. The marriage that slowly broke her. Audrey Hepburn's first marriage to Mel Ferrer began with promise, a meeting of minds between two cultured and artistic souls. They appeared, at least to outsiders, to be a perfect match, both multilingual, invested in their crafts, and connected through the world of film and theater. Their union in 1954, following their work together on Undine, seemed like a harmonious partnership built on mutual respect and creative collaboration. But beneath the surface, the balance began to shift in ways that gradually tightened around Audrey like a silent cage. Ferrer, initially a guiding presence in Audrey's early career, began to exert control over almost every aspect of her life. He had strong opinions about the roles she should accept, how she should present herself publicly, and even dictated who she spent time with. What started as support morphed into suffocation, a slow erosion of her autonomy masked by the illusion of partnership. Audrey, at the height of her blooming fame, found herself deferring to him more often than to her own instincts. This dynamic deepened the emotional distance in their marriage, despite outward appearances. Friends and insiders noticed the change, recognizing that the creative alliance was becoming a limiting prison for Audrey's spirit. Her own desires, ambitions, and needs were quietly sidelined in favor of Ferrer's vision. For someone renowned for effortless grace and independence on screen, this behind-the-scenes struggle was deeply hidden but profoundly damaging. One of Audrey's most profound yearnings was to become a mother. This was not a casual wish, but a core part of her identity that she carried with almost aching urgency. Early miscarriages compounded the strain on her emotional and physical well-being. The devastating losses delivered blows not just to her body, but also to her hope and happiness, layering grief upon the quiet emotional toll of the marriage. Her pregnancy in 1959 brought a cruel twist. While filming The Unforgiven, Audrey was thrown from a horse, breaking her back and leading to another miscarriage. These tragedies became intertwined with the deteriorating relationship, amplifying the heaviness she carried. For all the glamour and acclaim surrounding her, Audrey was battling deeply personal pains behind closed doors. When her son Sean was finally born in 1960, it marked a tentative moment of stability in an otherwise fragile time. She stepped away from the limelight for a full year, dedicating herself to motherhood in a way unusual for actresses of her stature. Yet even this precious chapter couldn't shield her from the unraveling fortunes of her marriage. The whispered rumors of Ferrer's temper, jealousy, and infidelity began to surface, casting shadows over their union. 14 years after their wedding, the marriage ended. Audrey walked away physically free, but emotionally depleted. It was a liberation that came at a great cost, leaving scars that she would carry forward into the rest of her life. The dissolution marked not just the end of a relationship, but the breaking of a foundation she had leaned on for too long. What lay ahead seemed, at the time, like a chance for renewal. But Audrey's experiences with Ferrer had seeded deeper wounds that would shape her future in unexpected ways. The man she never quite got over, however, would not be found in these marriages, but hidden much further in her past. Her story was far from over, and the next chapter would reveal a very different kind of heartbreak, with consequences that would last a lifetime. The man she chose over Hollywood. By the late 60s, Audrey Hepburn was at the peak of her fame. Films like Breakfast at Tiffany's, Charade, and My Fair Lady had solidified her reputation as more than a movie star. She was a cultural icon. Hollywood studios were eager to offer her any role she desired. Directors sought her out, and public adulation surrounded her on every side. Yet, In spite of all this success, Audrey made a startling decision to step away from it all. This choice wasn't motivated by a fading career or personal crisis, but by something far more personal: her son, Sean's well-being. Audrey was determined to give him a childhood free from the intrusions and sacrifices that her own fame had cost. For her, the demands of Hollywood clashed with the simple, protected family life she longed for. This drastic withdrawal baffled many, but revealed the depth of her priorities. It was during this period, on a Mediterranean cruise, that Audrey met Andrea Dotti, an Italian psychiatrist with a warm charm that contrasted sharply with the rigidity of her previous marriage. The romantic setting, historic coastlines, open seas, and tranquil evenings offered an appealing escape. Within 6 months, they married, and Audrey embraced the quieter role of wife and mother, relocating to Rome. At first, the marriage looked like it would give her exactly what she wanted, a kind of hush life, away from the glare. Still, under that calm surface, Andrea Dotti had another story, not quite as quiet. His affairs showed up again and again, reported in a stubborn Italian press, and honestly, not very discreet. Audrey tried to step out of Hollywood's spotlight, but somehow ended up in a different kind of spectacle, as if the attention followed her. Even after she learned about Dotti's betrayals, she stayed in the marriage longer than anyone really expected. A part of it was their son Luca, born in 1970, and a part of it was Audrey herself, that stubborn, resilient way of hers. She wasn't the sort to simply quit on a relationship. However, the non-stop infidelity, plus the total absence of any real privacy, made everything feel too heavy to carry. When it finally ended, the marriage itself closed quietly, but it left Audrey more guarded and more withdrawn than ever. And it was, somehow, different from tabloids or public chatter. Her responses stayed private, low-key, and contained, reflecting her dignified temperament. This chapter felt like a new angle on disappointment, separate from her previous marriage, yet still deeply cutting. Those two marriages, even if they were not identical in details, did show patterns that reached way back into Audrey's life. They made plain her ongoing fight with trust, with control, with closeness. And they also left those hard questions behind about what exactly kept pulling her into these painful cycles. And yet, Audrey did not let those wounds define the rest of her story. If anything, they sharpened her understanding of what peace truly meant. Fame had given her admiration, marriage had given her heartbreak, but motherhood gave her purpose.
I'm still the same way, but I've always cared terribly about my private life. And once I had my boys, I wanted to spend a lot of time with them.
In the end, love hurt her, but it never hardened her. The most revealing truth would emerge only later, when the origins of this pattern began to take shape, rooted not in Hollywood or Rome, but decades earlier in childhood. Childhood wounds and early loss. Audrey Hepburn was born in Brussels in 1929 into a family that, on the surface, seemed aristocratic and cosmopolitan. Her early years were marked by frequent moves between London, Arnhem, and other cities following her father Joseph Rustin's work. By a young age, she spoke 6 languages, and outward appearances suggested privilege and promise. Yet underneath this polished exterior lay a fractured family life, with deep emotional turmoil. Both of Audrey's parents were active supporters of the Nazi regime in the 30s. They openly attended rallies and aligned publicly with fascist ideology, a fact that would overshadow the family's wartime experience in painful ways. Then, unexpectedly in 1935, when Audrey was just 6 years old, her father abandoned the family. Consumed by politics, he relocated to London, leaving Audrey and her mother behind. This abandonment became the defining emotional wound of Audrey's life. She remembered waiting in boarding school during holidays for a father who never arrived, a vivid example of loss and rejection that haunted her into adulthood. The war years brought further hardship when she was sent to the Netherlands, hoping to find safety, but instead living under German occupation as a young child. In that time, Audrey sort of assumed a Dutch identity, to keep her English roots covered up. She went through the real terror of wartime, hiding in cellars during the gunfire, and then dealing with famine too. Her body took it hard. Malnutrition and illnesses kept showing up. 2 of her uncles were executed by the Nazis, and that savage loss kinda ended the whole idea that she could just stay unseen. When she was only 10, Audrey joined the Dutch resistance, She carried secret messages and also did ballet for clandestine fundraisers. And there, silence was crucial. Those years left her with scars, both physical and emotional. She lived off tulip bulbs, and she developed anemia, plus respiratory illness, so not at all like the polished grace people imagine later and kinda adore worldwide. Still, there was one small thing that stuck with her. After liberation, a UNICEF worker gave her a chocolate bar, and Audrey always remembered it. It became a kind of symbol, like hope inside the wreckage. Psychologists looking at Audrey's life have said something like this: her father's abandonment became the lens through which many later decisions should be read. The men she ended up drawn to, they often placed her into relationships with controlling, older figures, which echoed that early rupture. This hidden tendency shaped a lot of how she felt inside her emotional world. Even after she later tracked down her father, through the Red Cross, the reunion stayed cold and distant. There was little warmth, and not much healing offered. She forgave him, quietly, and she even supported him financially, which says a lot about her ability for compassion, even when her grief wasn't fully settled. All those early wounds set up the next step, so to speak, for deeper explorations into how they influenced every major bond Audrey formed across her life. The echoes of those early losses lingered, coloring her future in ways only the most intimate friendships and relationships would later reveal. Pain and patterns in love. Audrey Hepburn's childhood wounds deeply influenced the emotional patterns she carried into her adult relationships. Growing up with an absent father and the traumas of war left her yearning for stability and affection, yet wary of trusting fully. The men she gravitated toward were often older, authoritative figures who wielded control, mirroring the absence and emotional distance she had experienced as a child. This unconscious search for security sometimes steered her into dynamics that echoed old pains rather than healing them. Her marriage to Mel Ferrer reflected this tension. Though intellectual and supportive at first, Ferrer's controlling tendencies highlighted a familiar imbalance. Audrey often subordinated her own desires to maintain peace. Similarly, Andrea Dotti's charm masked a series of betrayals that shattered the hopeful facade of a quiet family life. Pain and disappointment seemed to shadow her romantic choices, as if she accepted emotional hardship as the price for love. Despite her extraordinary success and beauty, Audrey's intimate relationships revealed a profound vulnerability beneath her poised exterior. She guarded herself carefully, but did so at the cost of emotional openness. The heartbreaks she endured were silent undercurrents beneath her public grace. Each failed relationship layered additional wounds onto those childhood scars, reinforcing a pattern difficult to escape. This cycle of attraction to distant, controlling men wasn't born from naivety, but from a complex interplay of need and fear. Audrey longed to be loved unconditionally, but simultaneously braced against abandonment. The duality created emotional paradoxes where love brought not only joy, but also unease and restraint. It was a delicate balancing act she carried throughout her adult life. Her relationship choices kind of echoed that lingering hope she had, that someday she might find some steady ground, the stability that was denied to her back then. Whether it was Ferrer, Dotti, or anyone else, Audrey kept going, not just out of attraction, but out of a stubborn wish to build a family and a home life she never really got to have, not fully. Still, the same old trail of hurt kept showing up, which suggested her childhood losses weren't, truly dealt with. They seemed to keep working on her responses at a level below conscious awareness, like in the quiet parts. This emotional inheritance shaped more than just her love life. It seeped into how Audrey understood herself and where she fit in the world. When control and betrayal kept appearing in her closest relationships, it clashed sharply with the shiny, idealized image Hollywood projected. She put together this public persona of elegance and poise, while inside she wrestled with vulnerability, plus disappointment, that she never quite let anyone see. Through all of it, Audrey still showed a kind of resilience that stands out. Even amid heartbreak, she held on to forgiveness and compassion, like it was part of her, still alive. But the hope had this small, careful edge, a quiet caution, really, as if the wounds went deeper than any single romance could ever explain. Her love life then became this strange but honest proof of how healing from early emotional trauma can be complicated, tangled. That back and forth between pain and perseverance set the groundwork for some of her most profound connections, including the ones that didn't follow the usual rules or expectations. And it also prepared the way for a romance that was intense and real, but in the end, still highlighted her cautiousness and her longing too, both at once, almost like two sides of the same breath. Understanding these patterns brings us closer to the next chapter, where an extraordinary love both revealed her guarded heart and highlighted the legacy of those early losses. The relationship with William Holden. Among the men who touched Audrey Hepburn's life, William Holden stands out for the intensity and depth of their connection. Their story began on the set of Sabrina in 1954, under tense circumstances. With Humphrey Bogart resenting Audrey's casting, the atmosphere was frosty, and Holden's warm interest provided an unexpected source of comfort and companionship for her on set. The chemistry between Audrey and Holden was genuine, sparking quickly and effortlessly. Their closeness blossomed into a romantic relationship away from cameras and scripts, one marked by real emotional connection. Colleagues and crew saw something authentic in their interactions that transcended the usual film set facades. This was a bond charged with sincerity and passion. Holden fell deeply in love with Audrey, even proposing marriage as their relationship deepened. For a time, the possibility of joining their lives seemed within reach. But Audrey faced a heartbreaking reality. Her desire for children was central to her future, and Holden had undergone a vasectomy. This irreconcilable difference made the prospect of marriage impossible for her. Audrey's decision to say no was firm and final, rooted in a future vision that placed motherhood at its core. Despite the real feelings between them, she chose a path that prioritized her longing for family above romantic fulfillment. This choice reflected both her growing emotional maturity and the lingering effects of loss that had shaped her priorities. Holden was heartbroken by the rejection, and the shadow of their relationship lingered with him. He never fully moved on from Audrey, a testament to the profound impression she left on him. Their love story remains a poignant example of the tension between desire and circumstance, between what the heart wants and what life allows. In retrospect, Holden's role in Audrey's life reveals much about her guarded nature. He was not the man who broke her, but the one who exposed how deeply she had learned to protect herself. The experience underscored the divide between wanting something and trusting someone with the future she held dear. Their connection also highlights the complexity of Audrey's approach to love, a mix of passion tempered by deep-seated caution. She embraced real intimacy, but did so within boundaries shaped by her past. It was love both embraced and restrained, a balancing act that defined much of her personal life. This bittersweet romance prepared the ground for the quieter, steadier companionship she would find later in life, and it illuminated the emotional legacy she carried from childhood into every relationship she built. The journey through Audrey's loves isn't complete without seeing how she found solace in a different kind of partnership, one marked by calm, respect, and a shared understanding of life's deeper rhythms. Later years and quiet love. After her divorces and the heartbreaks that followed, Audrey Hepburn retreated from the spotlight in a way few expected. She moved to a farmhouse in Tolochenaz, Switzerland, calling it La Paisible, the peaceful one. Here, she lived simply and privately, turning down major film roles and avoiding the social whirl that had once consumed her life.
Audrey Hepburn's former peaceful retreat nestled in the beautiful town of Tolochenaz in Switzerland. This 18th century villa spans over 4 hectares of manicured gardens.
To neighbors, she was just a neighbor, someone who greeted the market with a quiet smile, far removed from her glamorous Hollywood persona. It was during this quieter period that Robert Wolders entered her life. A Dutch actor and businessman who had lost his wife after a long illness, Wolders brought a steady presence that Audrey seemed to welcome. Their first encounter at a charity auction was unremarkable, but a chance invitation led to a drink, which turned into hours of conversation, then daily phone calls. What emerged was a companionship rooted in mutual understanding and respect, not spectacle or pretense. Their relationship was free from the pressures that had marked Audrey's past romances. They never married formally, but for Audrey, there was no need for legal bonds. She introduced him as her husband because, in the most meaningful ways, their commitment was complete. Together, they shared La Paisible's peace, its garden, and a rhythm of life that valued quiet companionship above all else. Wolders was not just some companion around the social stuff. He was there with her too, during hard humanitarian errands. Audrey's work with UNICEF carried her into a few of the world's most difficult places, like Ethiopia, Sudan, Bangladesh, and El Salvador. Wolders stood beside her, not like a manager of celebrity logistics, but like a true partner who refused to let her face the heavy parts by herself. This period of Audrey's life showed a real turn, from public figure to a private woman who kept choosing service and the people who needed her most. Her strength and poise found fresh meaning in the middle of suffering and struggle far away from Hollywood's loud flashing lights. The affection she shared with Wolders was more plain, more constant, and rooted in everyday reality. Even after she pulled back from public view, her impact didn't fade. It actually thickened through the humanitarian work. She embodied compassion that looked like it was shaped by what she had already lived through, including loss and hardship. Her quiet routine didn't mean she abandoned the world's pain. It meant she redirected her energy toward healing other people. Together, she and Wolders built a life of real closeness, plus a shared sense of duty. Their partnership showed the kind of love Audrey seemed to have been chasing her whole life. Not loud and not dramatic, but stable. Not controlling, but helpful. In Wolders' calming presence, she finally found a kind of peace that had slipped away from her for so long, making her last years some of the most serene. This chapter of calm togetherness also helps set up how to understand the legacy Audrey left behind. An imprint made from love, loss, resilience, and yes, forgiveness. From this place of peace, she embarked on some of her most purposeful work, which reveals a deeper motivation behind all she endured and accomplished. Humanitarian work and legacy. Audrey Hepburn's commitment to UNICEF was much more than a public role. It was a mission shaped by profound personal experiences. Having lived through war, famine, and abandonment as a child, Audrey felt a deep connection to the suffering of children worldwide. Her humanitarian work was a way to address a debt she felt she owed to the girl she once was, scared and hungry in wartime Europe. Traveling to conflict zones and impoverished regions like Ethiopia, Sudan, Bangladesh, and El Salvador, Audrey witnessed hardship firsthand. She did not treat these missions as obligations, but as urgent, unfinished work. To her, it was a way of giving voice and comfort to children deprived of safety and love.
The child shall enjoy social protection and be given the opportunities, facilities, and means to enable development physically, mentally, morally, and spiritually.
Mirroring her own losses, those who accompanied her remarked on how deeply moved and authentic her efforts were. Her dedication was fueled not only by memory, but also by purpose, a passionate belief in leaving the world a better place. In interviews, she often spoke of love as the most important legacy one could leave children, underscoring how critical connection and care were to healing. This simple yet powerful conviction guided her every step. Audrey's humanitarian legacy also reflected an intimate understanding of absence and need. The children she championed were those who had lost family, home, or safety, circumstances Audrey had known all too well. Her life moved beyond celebrity to touch the course of global compassion, blending personal history with global impact. Her partnership with Robert Wolders was central to this chapter. He was more than a companion, he was a steadfast support who refused to let her bear the emotional and physical burdens alone. Their shared journeys forged a quiet but powerful alliance rooted in care and commitment. This phase represents a culmination of Audrey's life lessons, transforming personal pain into outward healing. Her work with UNICEF defined her final decade, demonstrating how tragedy and grace can intermingle in a life devoted to others. Even as her health declined, Audrey remained composed and focused, embodying strength shaped by decades of resilience. Her final efforts ensured that her story would not only be about fame and heartbreak, but also about hope and compassion. Her legacy as a humanitarian endures as a testament to the transformative power of love, forgiveness, and the will to serve. The quiet love and purposeful mission of Audrey Hepburn open a window to the deeper truths she carried, leading us toward the man whose absence shaped everything she was and loved. The man she never got over. In the final years of her life, Audrey Hepburn quietly revealed a truth that surprised many. The one man she never truly got over was not a husband or lover, but her own father. Joseph Rustin left when she was only 6 years old, disappearing from her life without explanation or contact. This abandonment became the defining emotional wound she carried beneath her composed public image, a wound that shaped many of her relationships and lifelong struggles. Her father's absence was not simply a matter of physical distance. When Audrey waited for him during school holidays, he never came. When she was sent to the Netherlands during the war, believing it would be safer, she was left alone to endure German occupation and the horrors that followed. Decades later, their reunion through the Red Cross was marked by coldness and indifference, not the warmth or closure she had hoped for. Despite the disappointment and distance, Audrey forgave him. She supported him financially until the end of his life, embodying a profound capacity for forgiveness that baffled those around her. This relationship with her father was wrapped in unresolved wondering. She often pondered what he had been thinking, whether he ever felt the absence the way she did, or if there was something in him that simply could not be expressed. This long, unhealed grief became kind of the lens through which a lot of Audrey's life, can be read or understood. Psychologists and biographers have followed her pattern of attraction to older authoritative men and traced it back to the empty space left by her father's departure. Mel Ferrer and Andrea Dotti fit this whole profile in different ways, sort of filling emotional gaps that were formed by early loss, not really healed them, not fully. Audrey's experiences with being left behind and this strong pull toward what was missing also fueled her deep commitment to children in crisis all around the world. Her humanitarian work with UNICEF showed more than public duty. It mirrored a personal mission to give to others the love and safety she felt she had missed as a child. Feeling loved was something she once described as the greatest gift a parent can leave for a child. It's an ideal she both longed for and then tried to provide herself. Through her work and her choices, even in her final months, with friends and family around her, and longtime companion Robert Wolders beside her, Audrey's mind often returned to her father. Her ability to love him, even with so little coming back, was both heartbreaking and somehow remarkable. It revealed a woman whose strength wasn't separate from her vulnerabilities, they were tangled together. That unresolved relationship, it pretty much defines the truest essence of who Audrey Hepburn was. A mixture of grace and grit, beauty and complexity, hope and sorrow. The paradox of loving and grieving. The very first man who was supposed to stay. Colors nearly every chapter of her life and career. It's a story that rarely gets told, but it is central to understanding the person behind the icon. By naming her father as the one she never really got over, Audrey gave a quiet and poignant reminder that love and loss can sit side by side, almost under the surface. And it's in that paradox, the wound that never fully closed, that the deepest truth about her life and her spirit comes through. In the end, Audrey's greatest heartbreak was not loud or scandalous. It lived quietly, beneath the elegance, beneath the smile, beneath the legend. Joseph Rustin's absence never stopped echoing through her, but it also helped shape her compassion. The little girl who was left behind became the woman who refused to let forgotten children feel the same emptiness. Audrey Hepburn's life was a delicate dance between public elegance and private heartbreak, shaped by a childhood loss that lasted a lifetime. Her story teaches us about resilience, forgiveness, and the enduring power of love, even when it is complicated. If you found this insight moving, please like and subscribe for more stories that reveal the depths behind extraordinary lives.